How's it going, you guys? So in this video I want to go over the many benefits of the paleo diet and summarize the foundational points and attributes that make the paleo diet such an amazing template to base your entire nutritional program from, and why so many people go from keto and carnivore diets typically back to a paleo template over and over again, either way. So to summarize the overall benefits of the paleo diet: gives your body all the nutrients it needs to function at an elite level. It boosts mood, reverses type 2 diabetes, improves markers of heart health such as HDL cholesterol, triglycerides, hemoglobin A1C, blood pressure regulation. I mean, there's lots of intervention trials that shows all of these things. It improves exercise performance, or it can improve exercise performance if you formulate it properly, and we'll discuss that a little bit more here in a bit. Relieves symptoms of autoimmune diseases through removing trigger foods. Low glycemic load, high nutrient value, high variety of different foods, meaning it's the least restrictive generally. Easy caloric deficit. Okay, so the paleo diet makes it very easy to lose weight because it's a whole foods approach, emphasizing high protein, which means high glucagon. Okay, glucagon helps to regulate insulin, as well as leptin and ghrelin, your hunger hormones. So protein's very important for that. It's very satiating, very balancing of insulin and hunger hormones. Very nutrient dense, fills you up easily and gives you a high amount of nutrition, which we'll go into deeper here in a bit. So high protein, which means high glucagon, regulated hunger hormones. High fiber. Okay, so for those of you who can tolerate plant foods and don't have autoimmune or digestive issues that are triggered by high fiber foods, the high fiber content makes it easier to stay satiated. And the high nutrient value as well as high variety makes it very easy to feel amazing. And because you feel amazing all the time and you are always satiated and you're getting all this nutrition, you're addicted to feeling high all the time from your high nutrient dense diet, which makes you not even want to eat the, you don't want to cheat on your diet because you don't want to feel like crap because you're addicted to feeling high all the time. You don't want to eat the grains, triggers IBS symptoms like for me, or psoriasis. You don't want to eat the refined sugar or refined carbs because that insulin spike makes you feel like you're in a carb coma afterwards. And you're losing weight effortlessly. You're getting all the nutrition, all the protein you need, always full, feeling good, and you can eat salads, you can eat freaking you can eat at Chinese food restaurants, you can eat at Mexican food restaurants, you can eat wherever and still get a variety of foods and not look like the odd one out, Going out to eat with your friends and family is easy to adhere to. You go to a diner, all you need is, order a steak, order a broccoli or a salad on the side and water, and you're good to go. Go to a Mexican food restaurant, just get the steak salad. You go to a Greek restaurant, you get a salad with lamb or whatever, and so the list goes on. So that's the variety aspect of adherence is very important. So paleo is easy to just live a normal life and feel amazing all the time. This all means it's a simple road to health, it's a simple road to an easy caloric deficit, and it's very easy to adhere to, okay? And you can tweak the paleo diet for athletic goals. So a lot of people, I commonly hear this argument from nutrition coaches who talk specifically about CrossFit athletes trying to follow paleo, and they say that you'd be better off eating hamburgers and stuff like that. And they talk about how Rich Froning drinks a gallon of milk a day and eats hamburgers after the CrossFit Games, okay? Because paleo is just too whole foods. It's hard to get enough carbs and calories for an elite athlete. So let me tell you some very easy ways to get around this following a Lauren Cordain style paleo diet. Okay, So, and Lauren Cordain actually released a paleo diet book specifically for athletes, one that I've reviewed on my channel before, and I own all of his books. And he made some modifications for athletes, including eating like white rice after workouts and stuff like that, and having a dextrose powder drink. But here is a simpler way. Eat more bananas and target honey around workouts. Okay, so one banana has like 30 to 40 grams of carbs. Okay, you can literally eat 10 bananas a day and get, get 200 grams of carbs from those 10 bananas, something like that. Okay, eat 20 bananas a day, you get like 400 grams of carbs. Okay, and most MMA athletes I know generally consume less than that, and if they're actually tracking their nutrition, they get anywhere from 300 to 500 grams a day depending on their workload. You can easily get 300 to 500 grams of carbs from bananas in targeting honey around workouts. Take a couple tablespoons of honey before your workout, a couple tablespoons after, and that's an easy, 50 to 200 grams of carbs from honey alone. Okay, and I mean, seriously, if you know anything about sports nutrition, you know that it's not uncommon for sports nutritionists to recommend, high sugar, high dextrose, like refined carbs around workouts. So honey is a good whole foods approach. Believe it or not, it still has a lot of nutrients and nitric oxide boosting compounds and things in it that allows you to adhere to a paleo diet, high nutrient density, etc., and not need to slam those refined carbs like a lot of athletes do. And also, there are low carb approaches, but they're just a lot more challenging to adhere to and harder to adapt to. So we're not even going to talk about that. But just so y'all know, you can be a high level athlete and fuel your workouts from paleo foods. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the exceptions to the paleo diet later for athletes as well that are kind of counterindicated in a lot of circles. So on to the main points here. Number one, paleo diet emphasizes animal protein. Okay, so hopefully you're not vegan. If you are, get off this video right now, because you're gonna just like confirmation bias the fuck out of the things I'm about to say. Emphasis on animal protein. Number one, we have creatine, carnitine, carnosine, proline, glycine, leucine, iron, B12, DHA, EPA, folate, all in their active and most bioavailable forms. Did I ever say vitamin A in its most active form? Potassium, magnesium, selenium, copper, zinc. Especially if you eat organ meats and collagen, you're going to be maximizing your health and your athletic performance because you're getting all of the building blocks your body needs to make its active compound. So this is probably the number one most important thing of a paleo diet that I personally have found have significantly boosted all aspects of my life. I've done carnivore diet, and I found that this is the reason why most people feel so great on a carnivore diet, is the emphasis on animal proteins that give your body its most important nutrients in all its bioavailable forms, and the removal of foods that trigger autoimmune symptoms. But within the paleo context, if you don't have autoimmune symptoms that are triggered by plant foods like vegetables and fruits, then this is an easy middle ground for you to feel even better, have a more variety of foods and more variety of nutrients without going strict carnivore. So let me talk about this. So no matter what diet you follow, these nutrients are vital for all aspects of health. Creatine. So especially in red meat, you get anywhere from 1 to 2 grams of creatine per pound of red meat per day, depending on how lean it is and stuff like that. Sorry, not per day, but 1 gram of creatine per pound of red meat. So that's very important right there. So creatine is not only beneficial for exercise performance. I mean, it's the most well-proven and documented sports boosting supplement on the planet. And people spend money buying creatine supplements, and they put it in all their pre-workout supplements and workout recovery supplements. But if they just ate their body weight in grams of protein from red meat, they'd be getting enough creatine to, over time, saturate the cells with creatine to the extent that has been found effective in clinical trials on exercise performance. But it's not just exercise performance. Creatine also boosts cognition and mood, and is one of the most reliable nootropic supplements out there. We also have carnitine. So carnitine is a supplement that's been shown recently in clinical trials to increase abdominal fat burning, which is, or specifically visceral fat burning, which is the most associated with disease. Now, to what degree is it significant? Maybe, maybe not. But the biggest thing here is carnitine plays a vital role in energy metabolism, and it's one of the most documented and proven nutrients associated with increased mental performance and mood. It increases the activity of acetylcholine, which boosts memory and boosts cognitive function and focus, but also it seems to have effects on the D1 dopamine receptors. Don't quote me on that, it might be D2, but increasing the functioning of motivation of dopamine receptors, responsible for motivation and focus and drive and consistency and things like that. So boosting brain function through creatine and through carnitine are some of the biggest benefits of the animal protein component of the paleo diet. And this is why I always recommend my health consulting and personal training clients to base their diet on red meat, because these two things alone are going to boost your mental performance, your motivation, your drive, and also your lean mass gains and your fat mass loss. And they seem to have benefits for energy metabolism, including greater endurance and recovery from exercise. So next on this list is carnosine. This is great for helping to buffer out lactic acid to a certain degree, if I'm not mistaken, but it also might have hormonal effects, balancing out testosterone and estrogen. But that's one that I'll have to make a separate video on to explain exactly what I mean. Pardon me if I misspoke on some of those benefits of carnosine. I'll make a video on that separately. Proline, very important for joint health. It is a building block of collagen and your joint tissue. For people who try to debunk collagen supplements, one thing that they always say is that collagen does not, eating more collagen doesn't create more collagen directly. But what they're missing is that glycine and proline are the main primary amino acids in collagen supplements, and any kind of gelatin or if you eat bone or bone broth or ligaments in your diet, or even the skin of like chicken breasts, or chicken thighs, the skin contain, or even like chicharrones or pig skins, they contain proline and glycine. These are the building blocks of your skin, your hair, your nails, and your joint tissue. So it does not surprise me that so many people report greater recovery and far less pain and inflammation from workouts when they supplement with collagen and when they switch to a paleo diet. And carnivore dieters mention the same thing. But they have problems with electrolytes and carb intake generally, because that's hard to micromanage a lot of times. Obviously, if you're eating a lot of animal protein, you're getting a high amount of leucine, which is a primary driver of protein synthesis. And one of the limiting factors in vegan diets is not overall protein intake, but the overall amount of leucine that these diets provide. There is a minimum daily requirement for all amino acids individually, and leucine specifically has been identified as the main benefit in these BCA supplements in general, because leucine drives protein synthesis. Very high on a paleo diet. Then, next on our list, we have iron, we have B12, and iron found in the form of heme iron. So I've recently discovered that soybeans actually have heme iron as well. Lots of vegans claim heme iron is a problem because it increases oxidative damage. It's never been demonstrated in human trials. It's only mechanistic jargon that these people like to spew so they can shit on paleo diets and red meat eaters. But apparently freaking soybeans also have heme iron. So if freaking iron from red meat was bad, so would soybeans. B12, I don't even need to explain any further. Obviously, you're getting B12 on an animal-based diet, and that's vitally important so you don't go crazy and insane like Vegan Gains and Freely the Banana Girl, and the list goes on. DHA and EPA in their active form. So even in small amounts in conventionally raised beef, you're getting small amounts of DHA and ALA. But ALA, omega-3, has a very low rate of conversion to the active form EPA and DHA that has been demonstrated over and over again in the scientific literature to boost cognitive performance, improve symptoms of depression, as well as reducing pain and overall inflammation in general, as well as heart health. Unless you are a Ray Peter, people follow the Ray Pete diet or some of these other far-fetched ideas. If you're actually following the weight of the evidence, including cohort studies and intervention trials, you'll find EPA and DHA are extremely beneficial for mood, for inflammation, for heart disease, but especially for mood. It's been proven, EPA specifically, significantly boosts mood. And this will overall boost your quality of life and your energy levels throughout the day. And that's one huge benefit of a paleo diet. ALA competes for the same enzyme as the omega-6 oils. Omega-6 oils are also very low on a paleo diet. And so by limiting omega-6 oils and increasing your amount of active EPA and DHA, you don't have to worry about ALA not converting. Whereas on a vegan diet, you have such high omega-6 competing with the same enzyme that the ALA needs to convert into active EPA, DHA, omega-3. Vegan diets and anyone who doesn't get the active forms are obviously going to be pretty damn low on the omega-3 scale. Let's just put it that way. Folate, very high, very hard to find unless you eat beans and stuff like that, but the digestibility and bioavailability of plant-based folate sources are very questionable, especially if you eat organ meats. Folate is very high in things like liver, and I believe kidney as well, and I think heart. So very important nutrient. I eat beef heart and calf liver on a regular basis to get my folate, as well as egg yolks. Potassium and magnesium found in the drippings of the meat. If you boil your meat and drink the fat, the fatty broth that comes with the boiled meat, you will be getting quite a lot of magnesium. So magnesium, anywhere from 50 to 150 milligrams per pound of red meat, where potassium is anywhere from 800 to, about 500 to 2,000 milligrams of potassium per pound of red meat, give or take. Also high in selenium, copper, and zinc, and balanced out in pretty good amounts, especially if you eat organ meats. So next on the list, number 2 on the benefits of a paleo diet is fruit intake. So fruit intake, okay, so this here, I believe, is the key. A lot of people on carnivore diets who add fruit back into their diet specifically report feeling complete. And let me explain why. So fruit is very high in magnesium, is high in potassium. So I can understand we're constantly told meat is low in nutrient density, which is not true at all. You get most of your nutrients from red meat if you eat adequate amounts of protein. 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight of protein from whole red meat would yield you 100% of your daily value of most vitamins and minerals. Magnesium and potassium is high in the drippings, but fruit is a lot easier to get magnesium and potassium from, depending on your own preferences for carb intake based on your goals. So for me personally, because I'm an athlete, I can eat up to 300 grams of carbs a day from bananas and berries and other various plants. And for I'm going to say, I don't quote me on this, but every 30 grams of carbs from bananas, every 30 grams of carbs from bananas, you get around 500 milligrams of potassium and 20 milligrams of magnesium, something like that. And so times that by 10 and I'll get about 100% of my daily value of all. But berries are relatively high in magnesium and potassium, and they're very easy to digest for most people unless you have a FODMAPs intolerance. But very bioavailable, very low in anti-nutrients, so maximum absorbable forms of potassium and magnesium. You also get folate and B1, which can be very hard to find in a mostly meat diet unless you're eating pork and organ meats. Vitamin C, which is highly controversial in the keto and carnivore communities, but I found a boost in mood, motivation, and overall energy when I consume vitamin C in my diet. And I believe that's because vitamin C is needed as a cofactor for neuroepinephrine synthesis, as well as to convert most of your dopaminergic amino acids into dopamine and norepinephrine and adrenaline rather than cortisol. So to decrease the conversion of like tyrosine, for example, into cortisol, and increase the conversion of tyrosine into L-dopa and dopamine instead, vitamin C is a huge important cofactor. So also in fruit, the polyphenols that are most associated with improved health, not just in cohort studies, many cohort studies, I believe the Pure study, Women's Health Initiative, and then what else? There was one more huge cohort study, I can't remember it right now for some reason. I think it was Framingham, maybe not Framingham, but many cohort studies have shown huge correlations between increased health outcomes and like great health outcomes and fruit intake. And there could be many reasons as to why that might be. But intervention trials specifically, where they actually add berries into the diet, show an improvement in mood and cognition. Okay, things like depression, markers like depression tend to go down or tend to improve. So, but correlation doesn't equal causation, but I believe fruit is most likely beneficial. And it is a food that, hunter-gatherers and like humans have been exposed to forever. And it would make sense for humans to seek out fruit because it's high in calories and it is readily available in only certain parts of the world, but it's not like an abundance. Like you're not going to go out into the forest and find, 2,000 calories worth of berries very easily. And most of those berries would be poisonous in, hunter-gatherer times, whereas meat, you'd get like, 80,000 calories worth of fat or more on an animal. But anyway, for 1 kill. But so, number 3, vegetables, if desired. So the third benefit, vegetables if desired on a paleo diet. So if you can tolerate it, okay? Because many people have possible intolerances, such as like oxalate intolerances or digestive problems where higher fiber food can aggravate it. But I think, I've come to the conclusion working with so many different people and myself that most people can tolerate vegetables, and it's actually the grains that people tend to have issues with. But benefits of vegetables would be extra magnesium and potassium and vitamin C if prepared properly. And, some vegetables are better than others, obviously. Polyphenols associated with greater health outcomes are found in vegetables. But again, its correlation does not equal causation. And I find the data on vegetables more so represents people who are living healthier lifestyle and health is one of their values. So they avoid junk food and replace it with vegetables. And that's why they're healthier. It's the avoidance of junk food, not necessarily the inclusion of vegetables. But I think that vegetables generally have benefits, and at the very worst, they're neutral unless you have food intolerances. But the biggest benefits of vegetables come from the fiber intake decreases their energy consumption through greater satiety. So because people will eat a greater volume of foods that are virtually 0 calorie, not really completely, but mostly low calorie, very high in fiber, very high in nutrition in general, and it's mostly undigestible plant matter, it's very easy to lose weight when you eat protein and fucking fiber. Like, how the hell are you going to be able to stomach those donuts and snack cakes afterwards? I find my clients get the best results when they include high fiber vegetables in their diet with berries, like low glycemic load fruits, and meat. Improve flavor, and then you get an increased variety of foods, so it's easier for you to live a normal life. You know, you go out to restaurants with your friends and family, you have more options available and don't have to be like a freaking monk under a rock. So number 4 benefit is herbs. So, you know, medicinal qualities, tonic qualities, flavor and variety. So, for example, you have rosemary, which in clinical trials, some of them, especially standardized extracts, have shown to increase cognition. That's something a lot of people watching probably haven't heard of before, but rosemary supposedly has nootropic type qualities. You know, you have like cayenne pepper that can relieve mucus and help to neutralize you know, viral symptoms and bacterial infections and things like that, respiratory illness. What else? Like raw garlic is very good as an antibacterial, and I've used it when I came down with, you know, symptoms, caught it from someone who was violently sick for weeks. Taking raw garlic, I was done with it in two days. Then you have things like cordyceps, reishi, gynostemma, and even things like Camellia sinensis, like traditional green tea, white tea, black tea. I think overall for many people these are great additions as like tonics, and you got, what else? If you suffer from, you know, you do use golden seal and echinacea for infections and things like that. I mean, my pantry is full of tonic herbs and medicinal herbs, but I hardly use many of them. Yeah, it's just a great benefit to have. Like, you know, if you're on a paleo diet and you want to drink that herbal tea instead of, you know, your normal sweet tea, or if you want to drink that herbal tea because you feel like, you know, chamomile helps you relax, you know. So these are very beneficial, and I talk about a lot of these different herbs on my channel, so that's a good benefit of the paleo diet. Number 5, it removes most foods. The foods that are most associated with disease are removed. So I think that it doesn't even need to be said, but most healthy diets, unless you follow the repeat diet, remove refined carbohydrates. So no refined flour, refined sugar, etc. These have been pretty damn well documented, shown for increasing the rates of disease in populations that eat them. 2 books I recommend for anybody who wonders if, you know, refined carbs are really that bad. The first one is Weston Price, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Literally shows the effects of eating refined foods over time and less traditional foods. An easier version of that work would be Sally Folin's Nourishing Diets. And then an even better, more specific book would be The Case Against Sugar by Gary Taubes. That's a very good book and eye-opening as to the marketing and whatnot behind refined carbs. The second thing on this list is refined fats. Refined fats are obviously bad. So, you know, corn oil, soybean oil, just vegetable oils in general, seed oils. Very, very bad. Probably the driving factor in heart disease over the last 100 years in the 1900s. And mostly because they have a tendency to turn into basically trans fats, but reactive oxygen species in the body, highly oxidative, causing direct damage to the arterial wall, and probably a driver of cancer as well. I believe Dr. Kermrow, PhD, the guy who got the FDA to finally ban trans fats, very good read. He has a book, it's called Cholesterol is Not the Culprit. And highly recommend that book to understand why refined fats are bad. You can also read The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Schultz, but that's kind of like a harder read, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding that. Good Calories, Bad Calories might be a good read as well. But I like Kermrow's work because he's a leading researcher and dedicated most of his life to understanding oxidized fats. So number 6, removes foods most commonly reported to trigger symptoms of autoimmune illness, digestive disease, and things like that. So a lot of people who go on the carnivore diet and they find that they reverse most of their autoimmune illness and digestive disease and things like that, most of them could probably experience the same benefits simply by going on an autoimmune paleo diet. But paleo as a whole basically just removes whole grains, beans, legumes, and basically quinoa and anything similar to those foods. That means rice of all kinds, pasta of all kinds, wheat, freaking quinoa, any of those grains, lentils, beans, whatever. But real true paleo also limits potatoes and dairy, and especially dairy, but dairy, whole grains, beans, legumes, those are huge contributors to autoimmune disease for many people and digestive illness. Most people feel better when they remove them. And of course with dairy, it's kind of a nuanced topic that we'll get into in a second. Potatoes is also kind of nuanced, and we'll get into that in a second. But whole grains, basically very high in all sorts of things that are hard on the digestive system. So we have trypsin inhibitors, things that inhibit the digestion of protein, phytic acid, which can be mostly neutralized by cooking, soaking, and sprouting. But the main thing is that for whatever reason, these foods just seem to be very hard to digest. So for me personally, I found when I went vegan especially, and I was eating mostly these foods, I was just shitting most of them out undigested. And I tried all sorts of things, soaking, sprouting, etc. And I found so many people had the similar problem that I did. And doctors were just telling me, hey, yeah, that's normal. Those are high fiber foods, you know. They're supposed to be shut out undigested. I'm like, well, if that's the case, why am I even eating these foods? You know, and I mean, broccoli's high in fiber, but I don't really have problems after the first week of eating it. So, you know, why am I not shitting that out? And I find that it's just because whole grains, beans, and legumes are seeds. And seeds are meant to be shat out undigested with your poop, because poop is fertilizer. And you poop them into the soil, and they poop out completely unfazed so that they can grow into the plant. So the plant can live on. Whereas broccoli is basically like a fruit of the plant. And the fruit's meant to be eaten. Fruit typically contains seeds, and so you eat the fruit with the seeds, and then you shit the seeds out undigested and continues the cycle of life. So that's kind of like the simplified reason as to why maybe people like me have trouble with those foods. But, you know, they tend to trigger lupus and fibromyalgia and all sorts of problems. But specifically gluten and gliadin are the big ones that contribute things like fibromyalgia. And you know, that's something to go deeper into later on, but you can read more about that in other sources. Number 7, offshoots of paleo. And I will also add that after you heal your gut from whatever it was that caused it originally, like you can start to eat like oats and whole grains again. I actually have found I can eat beans and oats every now and then and be okay. It's just the more that I eat, the more it builds up in my digestive system, and the worse my symptoms get. But I actually seem to be able to tolerate them okay now. But they are something most people should avoid for a while until you heal your gut. So, offshoots of paleo. Potatoes, part of the nightshade family, but so are tomatoes, ashwagandha, goji berries, etc. Peppers and whatnot, and these can trigger arthritis, and many people believe the saponins found in potatoes can break down the gut lining and contribute to leaky gut. That's one of Lauren Cordain's main arguments as to why you should avoid beans, legumes, whole grains, and potatoes, is that he believes that they directly break down the gut lining and contribute to a whole host of diseases. I believe potatoes are fine if you're an athlete, especially sweet potatoes that aren't actually real potatoes, in which case you should probably remove the skin, because the skin is where most of the antinutrients are contained, and most people have trouble digesting the skin. I find I just poop them out undigested, but the actual starch of the potato seems to be fine. Hunter-gatherer tribes typically that eat tubers will will eat the flesh but spit out the fibers. So just have precaution with potatoes, and if you experience issues, then remove them. And if your goal is fat loss, you should probably stick to berries and low glycemic load carbs that are lower in calories. Dairy might trigger autoimmune symptoms, but can be nutritive for many people. For me, so most people it's the lactose, but for me, I don't have lactose problems. I have problems with casein and whey protein. So the dairy proteins seem to cause me breathing problems. And there was a suspicion that it also interfered with my mood, but it definitely just kind of like increases mucus buildup to where it feels like my lungs are blocked off or something. And when I remove it, I can breathe freely. So I just do my best to avoid dairy most of the time, but every now and then I like to eat a really sharp grass-fed Australian cheddar. Extra sharp by Country Crock, or not Country Crock, but yeah, like it's a cheese company. I find that's really delicious. So that's pretty much the gigantic overview of the rationale and the benefits of the paleo diet. You know, typically people who follow paleo report feeling the most energy, the best health and vitality and mood boosting and well-being they ever felt in their life. Autoimmune issues go away, diabetes gets reversed, etc. Blood markers of disease typically improve. And if you follow the Lauren Cordain version of the paleo diet specifically, you will find your blood work comes back perfectly by mainstream standards, because Lauren Cordain emphasizes lower saturated fat, higher monounsaturated omega-3, and low glycemic load, which means low LDL, high HDL, low triglycerides, low hemoglobin A1C. I don't think that LDL is something to worry about, or the saturated fat would be something to worry about, but just depends on what you want in your goals. For weight loss, keep the carbs lower, protein high. For athletic goals, keep the protein high, bump the bananas and fruits and carbs up, and you'll be golden. I like paleo. I think it's great, and I don't think vegetables are necessary, but yeah, I mean, so overall, paleo is great. There is reasoning behind it, mostly for people who have autoimmune illness or digestive disease. It's like a whole food diet in general, just a general healthy whole food diet that just removes whole grains, beans, etc., because they can trigger some issues, some health issues that mainstream nutrition circles, mainstream dietitians, mainstream medicine typically marks off as like mysterious. But paleo is whole foods recognizing that individual people have food tolerances triggered by these modern foods, even whole grains and whatnot. So yeah, I like paleo. I think it's great. I think it's the way to go if you really want to feel your best and you don't want like a super restrictive diet like fucking carnivore or keto or whatever. But I think following a general keto macro approach, but with higher protein, like a low-carb paleo diet is probably good for most people's fat loss goals, and add more carbs over time as your weight stabilizes. So anyway, leave your question, comments down below. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to y'all next time.